He sat on the cold railway platform, the hands on the clock seeming to be almost unmoving. Winds picked up some paper and blew it past his feet, and he watched it grateful that their eyes didn't have to meet. It had been just 24 hours since first they had held hands, since first they met, and now in just a few minutes the dream would be over, and once more reality would come into their lives. He felt her hand tremble in his, and knew that she was fighting back the tears that threatened to cover her so beautiful eyes. They both knew that the train would be there soon, and that he would have to leave her. It seemed such a wonderful idea, the idea for him to travel to meet her. Memory from his childhood, a memory whom he had not seen for so many years, yet had often appeared in his tumbled memories. A face that had flicked across his dreams when times had been dark, and there had been enough of those. He thought. She had been just a memory until he'd seen her name among the members on the internet Old Scholars list, a name that had brought those memories to the surface again, and with them the name was an email address. He'd emailed her, and was very pleased when she'd responded, seemingly remembering him. That had been the start of their relationship, the start of what had led him to be here now on this cold, empty platform. That had been over a year ago now. He placed his arm round her without thinking, as he'd done from the very first moment they'd met. She seemed to fit into his arms as though they were made for her. She snuggled against him, shivering either from the cold or the pain that they both felt in their hearts. They started out by sending emails, catching up on old times and remembering events and friends, letting each other know what had happened in their lives. Their emails soon became online messaging, and often they chatted into the night, learning about each other, sharing their thoughts and dreams as their love blossomed on the internet. He told her about his life and the pain of his divorce and the devastation and the total feeling of helplessness that had covered him. She seemed to understand. Indeed, her own life had been no bed of roses. Slowly, without them realizing what was going on, each unsure of the other's feelings and scared to show their own, they grew together. Several times he wanted to let her know how he felt, how across the miles that kept them apart his heart was telling him this was something special, that he was falling in love with her. Sometimes he started to tell her and then stopped, scared of losing her, or scared of what revealing his true feelings would do. In fact, scared of everything. He had felt something for her on a few occasions, the odd comment or message, the reply that had been just too quick, as if covering something up. They had spoken a few times on the phone. The 500 miles that kept them apart seemed nothing to their hearts when the words once typed were spoken to each other. Then one day, just as they were saying goodbye, she had messaged him, "You know I love you, Dave." It was totally out of the blue, and before he could reply, she was gone. He tried to call her on the phone, but he couldn't get through. Tried to message her again, but she was no longer online. She loved him. She loved him. The words beat through his heart like a drum. The next thing he could remember doing was throwing some clothes into a small bag and getting a taxi to the railway station. 500 miles was a long journey. He'd no time to go into sorting out plane flights, and he knew he had to be with her, and that the train would get him there. The journey seemed to take forever, and he never quite got the point of why he was actually on the train and making the trip. All he knew was that his heart told him it was the right thing to do. He only had the weekend before he would have to be back at work, and by the time he got there to her, it would be just 24 hours before he had to return. He arrived at the railway station and the evening sun started to melt into the night sky, shedding a faint red glow on the numbers of the phone as he once more dialed her number, when he finally made it to the station. "Linda," he said when he heard her voice answering the call. "Linda, I love you." He heard a gasp at the other end of the phone and carried on. "Linda, I know how we feel about each other, and I'm sure you feel the same." "Yes," came a faint voice at the other end of the phone. "Yes, and I love you too, so very much." His heart did a complete somersault of happiness. "Linda, darling," he said, for the first time able to show his emotions, "I'm at the railway station. We have 24 hours together." The line went quiet before a trembling voice replied, "Darling Dave, oh my darling, I'll be right there to pick you up." He didn't know anything until she was there in his arms, which went round her as if it was an automatic pilot. The words were lost in a kiss that seemed to go on forever. That was the start. The next 24 hours had been one of such happiness. Their love glowed for all to see. Words up to now unsaid, spilled from their lips and from their hearts. Hands learned, bodies shared, hearts became one. The time rushed by, but each minute was filled with the knowledge of what they had found. This was their time, each second filled with their own special moments. Laughter filled their world of love, and the knowledge that in each day they had each other, they had found what was meant to be. All too soon, the 24 hours were over, leaving them at this junction in their lives on the lonely, cold railway platform. The train came into the station, and he got to his feet, shifting the bag into his other hand so that he could hold her one last time and kiss the lips that told him so much and showed him even more. He looked into the eyes he'd come to love and felt her hand hold his like it would never let go. And "All aboard!" from the guard filled the empty silence, but he didn't move. She looked at him, puzzled, eyes filled with tears ready to burst forth as he climbed onto the train. His feet would not move, the message from his brain never getting past his heart. The train started to slowly leave the station. Her hand gripped his harder than ever. "Dave," she said, "Dave, I don't understand." He smiled. All had become clear in those last few seconds of the 24 hours. "Linda," he said, "that train was to take me home. But I realise that with you, I'm already home. You are my home, my life, my love, where I need to be." With that, the dam that had held her emotions in check burst. Tears streamed down Linda's face. This time, though, not with pain, but with pure joy. The 24 hours was over, but from that day, every 24 hours would be theirs to share.